A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the founder and Acharya of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And we are all grateful to him for bringing us Krishna. This is Srila Prabhupada's greatest gift, that he came to the Western countries and is delivering us from voidism and impersonalism as we glorify Srila Prabhupada every morning, every day. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Prastyata Deshatarine. So I'd like to read this epilogue just to begin the offerings today. This is from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, Volume 6. In describing how the followers of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, continue to relish the nectar of serving Him in separation, we are not speaking of only a small band of several thousand devotees whom He initiated during His lifetime. Srila Prabhupada was not only an Acharya, but he was the founder Acharya of the Krishna Consciousness movement, which is a dynamic spiritual reality. That reality is nothing less than the Yuga Dharma, or the form of spiritual life recommended for all humanity in the present age of Kali, the most dangerous of ages, in which humanity eventually abandons all religious principles. The ultimate goal of human life was taught by Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, when he declared, "Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not fear." Krishna taught this 5,000 years ago when he appeared in the world, but people have misinterpreted and misunderstood what Krishna meant. Lord Chaitanya advented, therefore, to revive the original message of surrender to Krishna, primarily by introducing the Sankirtan movement of chanting the holy names of God. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya, appearing in the 19th century, foresaw that Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan principles could and would be introduced all over the world. He had studied deeply many other religions and philosophies, but he felt that Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan was universal, the essence of religious life, able to unite all people and bring them to perfection. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's son was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who became the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada, and who ordered Srila Prabhupada to implement the vision of the worldwide Krishna consciousness by going to preach in the West. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is, therefore, to be appreciated not only as the guru of a few intimate servants, or even the guru of a single generation of disciples. As a founder Acharya of the Krishna consciousness movement, he introduced the standard of Krishna consciousness as it can be practiced by all sincere followers for thousands of years to come. The scriptures predict that although the present age is constantly becoming more inauspicious, unfortunate, and degraded, for a period of 10,000 years from the time of Lord Chaitanya's advent, a golden age of Krishna consciousness can appear, despite the force of Kali Yuga. Srila Prabhupada therefore prepared his translations and Bhaktivedanta purports on the essential Vaishnava scriptures, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, with the plan that they would form the foundation of the Krishna consciousness movement for 10,000 years. We cannot limit Srila Prabhupada, therefore, by describing him only within the drama of his being the guru for one generation of followers. Srila Prabhupada is Jagat Guru, the spiritual master of the entire world. He is a bona fide spiritual master, faithfully conveying the message of the disciplic succession from Lord Krishna, as he received it in the parampara from his spiritual master. But more than that, he was empowered by Krishna to do what no other spiritual master has ever done. He is the founder Acharya for spreading Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan worldwide in the midst of the age of Kali. Anyone who wants shelter from the evil effects of the present Kali's age can have it by taking up devotional service under the guidance of Lord Chaitanya's teachings as given by Prabhupada. The dynamic preaching and realizations of Srila Prabhupada reveal the sublime teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which otherwise have been neglected, misused, and kept within the confines of India. Srila Prabhupada was actually able to understand Lord Chaitanya's prediction that Krishna consciousness was spread to every town and village in the world. Srila Prabhupada had faith in these words and personally saw in his lifetime that pure Krishna consciousness could be adopted by people of all races and cultures, even those considered by Vedic standards to be aborigines and outcasts, through the applications of Srila Prabhupada. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement is now proven to be viable for anyone, anywhere in the world. Anyone can serve Srila Prabhupada in separation. He asks all his followers to avoid four sinful activities: meat eating, intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling, and to chant the Hare Krishna mantra a minimum of 16 rounds daily on beads. He also advised that one regularly read Vedic literature such as Bhagavad Gita as it is and Srimad Bhagavatam. And for keeping spiritual health and strength to follow spiritual principles, he advised that one associate with like-minded devotees. Whoever follows these basic practices and recognizes Srila Prabhupada as the direct representative of Krishna is his follower. And the Vedic scriptures say, by serving the representative of Krishna, can one become dear to Krishna himself. The ways of serving Krishna are unlimited, as Srila Prabhupada expertly displayed. He invited scientists, artists, philosophers, and businessmen to serve Krishna according to their occupations and capabilities. The artist, instead of painting pictures out of his imagination or making renderings of the material energy, can paint pictures depicting Krishna in the spiritual world. The poet can describe Krishna as the absolute truth. The philosopher can explain Krishna as the cause of all causes. The scientist can prove that life comes from life. And the businessman can contribute money to the worthiest welfare activity of Krishna consciousness. A person does not therefore have to abandon his family or retreat to a solitary cave to realize God. In any situation of life, one can move from mundane to spiritual by adopting the practices of Krishna consciousness. This is the broad and liberal way Srila Prabhupada intended Krishna consciousness to pervade society. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Prabhupada's own society of devotees, is meant to help all persons interested in developing spiritual life under Srila Prabhupada's guidance. ISKCON was Prabhupada's organization for establishing and proliferating temple worship, book printing and distribution, and communities where devotees could live and serve together in close association. Prabhupada therefore entrusted all his properties, including the magnificent temples he had built in India, to ISKCON for the protection and perpetuation of his work. And he instructed his disciples to show their love for him by always cooperating among themselves to expand further the Krishna consciousness movement. When a disciple expressed his appreciation of Prabhupada's magnificent quarters in Bombay, Prabhupada replied, "I cannot take these with me. I am leaving them for you to use." The essential gifts of Krishna consciousness which Prabhupada brought are for everyone. Although most people do not know it, they are actually hankering for the happiness of genuine spiritual life. Prabhupada, out of compassion, wanted to distribute these gifts of Krishna consciousness to all the hungry people in the world. These gifts, peace of mind, satisfaction, freedom from anxiety, can be obtained by anyone who takes wholeheartedly to devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This pure, happy state can be realized by receiving the ongoing dynamic legacy which Prabhupada left: his books, his devotees, his Krishna conscious society, and his method of expertly applying Krishna consciousness to every situation in the modern context. Whoever intelligently takes up the practice of Krishna consciousness will also inherit the most wonderful realization in his relationship with Srila Prabhupada, the pure devotee of Krishna. We hope that Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta will help the readers in establishing their relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Its contribution is in the mood of remembering Srila Prabhupada in separation. Remembering his pastime puts one into direct contact with him, with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this remembrance can free one from the bondage to material life and enable one to taste the nectar of the eternal pastimes of Krishna and his associates in the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada's life did not end on November 14th, 1977, and we hope that the readers of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta will not feel they have finished their connection with this literature by having read it once. Srila Lilamrta can be read regularly from beginning to end. Our hope about Srila Prabhupada, the reader will become himself a Prabhupadanuga, a follower of Srila Prabhupada. We can wish no better fortune upon anyone. Srila Prabhupada ki. Now we'd like to ask His Grace Pancharatna Prabhu to come up and offer his homage to Srila Prabhupada.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Purle Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tirani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirvisesha Sunibari Pashtratere Shatarine Vanchikapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Just reorient this down.
Okay, thank you. Hare Krishna. Today we'll be observing Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Festival in two sections, this morning and then this afternoon. And this morning, we're a more intimate group of Prabhupada Nugas, as was just described. This evening, it'll be a little mixed. There'll be people visiting who are members of our community, but perhaps have not yet embraced Srila Prabhupada as their guru, as we all have. From what we've just heard, it's very clear that Srila Prabhupada is available to everyone as guru. Understanding the principle of guru is at least for me, is a lifelong endeavor. In Srila Prabhupada's address to the assembly of devotees in Mumbai in, I'm not sure, the year 1930-something, 34 I think it was. 36, was it 36? Srila Prabhupada, the title has been given to that talk of the universal teacher. And Srila Prabhupada makes some very strong points about the universal character of Guru, Acharya. The Acharya is one, he says, appearing in many forms. So we can appreciate this. And yet at the same time, we know that Srila Prabhupada is unique. His position, yes, he is thoroughly the servant of all of the acharyas, his own Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Prabhupada, the Goswamis. We're also called Rupa Nugas because we're all followers of Sri Rupa Goswami. But Srila Prabhupada also has a unique position as a person. I serve with some devotees in a group, a team called the GBC Strategic Planning Team, and we're launching today, we're beginning a series, Srila Prabhupada in My Life. And if you get the chance to tune in to our channel and watch, they'll of course be there on YouTube. You can watch later on. But we're going to be broadcasting some presentations by grand disciples of Srila Prabhupada. How Srila Prabhupada is in their lives. And this is part of what we have seen to be a need amongst us all to imbibe Srila Prabhupada's legacy in three different forms. Srila Prabhupada's legacy, we can understand that he left for us his books. That's his first and foremost legacy that he's worked so hard to bring about. And we also understand that he lives there. Now this is a difficult thing, at least for me. How does a jiva, I'm a jiva, and I don't know how I could consciously live within something I've written. Of course, I can understand that principle of connecting. But the connection that we form with Srila Prabhupada when we read his books goes beyond simply the memory of Srila Prabhupada or the hint or the idea that he is there, but there is actually a connection. I believe this. And I believe that many of you may have experienced this, that when you read Srila Prabhupada's books, you're not just getting the idea of Srila Prabhupada's presence, because it's his words, etc., but there's actually a spiritual relationship that you feel. The second legacy of Srila Prabhupada that we're all very much attached to and should be attached to, as mentioned before, is his ISKCON, his society, his mission, his organization that he works so hard to build and is now given to us as stewards, because he remains. It remains his property. It's not that we inherited his society and now we own it and we can do whatever we like with it. No, it's his society, it remains his society, it's his organization, it's his mission. Of course, it's also the mission of all the acharyas. It's the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But now we have been entrusted with this to carry it out, to carry it forward. But there's also a third legacy that we have to also be very conscious of establishing it strongly. His personal, his teaching by himself, by the way that he acted and what he did. That's in addition to what he wrote and what he spoke, how he acted, how he did, what he did in his life is there for all of his followers to embrace and to live with and to continue to bring to others. This is sometimes difficult, because Srila Prabhupada, unlike any other acharya that we know of, was active. There were tape recorders and video recorders, and now there are videos and tapes and books, and there's so much to reveal and to see Srila Prabhupada. He wrote letters which are preserved. In the case of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we understand that there were many biographies, many people who wrote about the activities of Sri Chaitanya, and yet these are not present anymore. We have all of this. And when we go through it, we see that in certain situations, Srila Prabhupada acted in one way, and in another situation he acted in another way. So now it is up to us to thread all of this together and to establish and to understand, which is a work that we must all do, Srila Prabhupada in our lives. So I don't want to speak much more because I want to hear from you. You are carrying that legacy. It is you, his disciples. I was initiated here in Brooklyn, not too far away 439 Henry Street, walking distance, 1971, now 50 years. And my time is somewhat limited, although we think we'll live forever. But we know the writing is on the wall. But you, hopefully, have many, many more years. And it's now in your hands. So I would like to now request, of course, I think my wife also has something to offer. She would like to read. So I don't know what your system is. You're doing, okay. But I'm going to end here, and you'll continue. And I hope to hear much about who is Srila Prabhupada in your life. You, the carriers of. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So now we would like to invite and embrace Tita Guna Mataji. Please come up and read her offering.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastai Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschachara Satarane. Dear Srila Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, he reasons ill that tells that Vaishnavas die. While thou art living still in sound, the Vaishnavas die to live, and, living, try to spread the holy name around. This poem gives us great joy. We simply have to take it to heart and realize how much mercy you have given us. You are such an important personality, a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. You explain to us that Krishna is a storehouse of transcendental love, and Lord Chaitanya came with his associates to plunder this storehouse, to taste Krishna's transcendental love. Like them, you did not consider who was a fit candidate or not to take to this transcendental movement. Our Krishna consciousness movement was started single-handedly by you. You wrote, in Sridham Mayapur, there is sometimes a great flood after the rainy season. This is an indication that from the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, the inundation of love of God will spread all over the world, for this will help everyone. You wrote this prayer to your spiritual master. Had you not come, who had told the message of Krishna, forceful and bold? That's your right, you have the mace. Save me, a fallen, your divine grace. The line of services drawn by you is pleasing and healthy, like morning dew. The oldest of all, but in new dress, miracle done, your divine grace. Dearest Srila Prabhupada, 44 years have passed since you left us to serve Lord Krishna in his abode. You have the power to empower even the most sinful and degraded person to become saintly and preach all over the world. We pray to you to give us the strength to inundate the world in Krishna consciousness. Please make us your worthy disciples and help us to be the sincere servants of the Panchatattva. You performed an historically unparalleled feat by spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world. We can never repay you for all that you have given us. Empowered by the Supreme Lord, you have published many transcendental books. In this degraded Kali, you built a house in which the whole world could live. ISKCON is like a big boat in the middle of the ocean of Maya that is taking humanity to a world without suffering. And you, Srila Prabhupada, are the captain of this boat. Beloved Srila Prabhupada, we believe you are a Shaktivesh avatar, delivering us from the illusion of ignorance. Srila Prabhupada, you are our greatest hero. In 1976 and 1977, we were going out on book distribution. In mid-1977, we heard that you were becoming weak and were sickly. We always thought that you would recover. On the evening of November 14th, 1977, we came home from distributing books in Sydney. We were told to shower and immediately go up to the temple room. One of the brahmacharini said, "I think a great soul has left us," and we all said, "No, he won't leave us." When we went into the temple room, we saw that great saint, Tribhuvanath Prabhu, crying. We knew that real tragedy had struck our lives, and you had indeed departed from this world. How could we live when you were gone? You were the one that was inspiring us day by day, encouraging us to serve in a devotional mood and distribute phenomenal spiritual literature. What were we to do? You saved us again by your encouraging us to read your books and getting us to chant Hare Krishna, as in Japa and in Kirtan. We are so grateful to you for how you changed our lives. We offer you our humblest obeisances, and we offer you our hearts. You are the greatest savior of the world. Srila Prabhupada, Ki Jai. Your lowly and worthless servant, Tita Gunadasi.
And now we'd like to call His Grace Ramroy Prabhu to offer his homage.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskita Deshatarane. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he is described, and also Satsvarup Maj taking that statement of Kaviraj Goswami in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrta, that the sky is unlimited, yet birds fly higher and higher according to their capacity. So, such a personality of Srila Prabhupada just like the glories of Krishna, ever new and fresh to hear and chant, and always more and more to be discovered in the subject matter. So the glories of Srila Prabhupada are unfolding and revelatory at every moment. And that's not just because of the glorious nature of the pure devotee and their connection with Krishna, but that they're actually present here simultaneously while being in the transcendental abode of the Lord. Their service and their association continues on this plane. Prabhupada was asked in his later days how we could have his association in such transcendental communion when the physical or Vapu association is no longer present. And Prabhupada said it's possible, but it depends on your purity. So it's an individual relationship. And of course, that individual relationship is made strong by flying in formation as a flock of birds, staying within ISKCON. His Holiness Giriraj Swami, in the very last days of Srila Prabhupada, put to him this, that you are present now and can settle our differences, our arguments, what to do when you're gone, and these problems or arguments seem irreconcilable, that they'll inevitably be split, break-offs from the movement. Devotees would not be able to settle their arguments. And Prabhupada's answer was, you are a senior member of this society, and you should work for the correction, but under no circumstances should you leave. So, as was described, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is Prabhupada's creation. In so many ways, it's his gift to give us complete shelter from the outside materialistic demoniac situation of this age of Kali Yuga. And its aims, meaning it, Prabhupada, he said, the trouble with you Westerners, particularly Americans, is that you always change things. Just keep as it is, the framework, and it will automatically grow. But again, it's personal. A very wonderful source of inspiration for devotees to have Srila Prabhupada's association is the product of Siddhanta Prabhu, who very timely started interviewing all of Srila Prabhupada's disciples as early as 1992, 3 or 4 or 5 he began.
Doing a broadcast with him this morning, and
okay.
you can tune in later on, and you'll
Wow, he's a good first choice for you. And now such a program. What is it called? The general title of this.
This series is Prabhupada in My Life.
Prabhupada in My Life.
Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah. So there are, I think the number now is in the 80s, 80, 90-minute or more interviews with hundreds and hundreds of Prabhupada's disciples. Many of them have gone back to Godhead, gone back to Srila Prabhupada. As he says, we want to preserve these oral testimonies. So, somehow, I forget who was saying this, I just heard this recently listening to the series, that there's some statistic that in Kali Yuga, 10% of the world's population will become Krishna conscious. And, it was Nara Narayan asked this. This is in one of the earlier ones. Well, Srila Prabhupada, the way he would speak. If it's going to happen automatically, then where is, what's the difference between free will and destiny? It was on a morning walk, and Prabhupada was walking with his cane, which had kind of a handle on it, and Prabhupada just stopped, turned around and looked him right in the eye and said, but if you preach, it can be 100%. And Prabhupada writes a very nice purport. I'm always fond of quoting it in the 6th canto, that the chapter is instructions on how to worship Lakshmi Narayan, and within the particular text, it seems a pretty standard glory potency of Lakshmi Narayan. But Prabhupada, within that purport, amazingly describes how the greatest opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even though he's completely efficient and completely independent in fulfilling and satisfying all his desires, still the greatest of his opulences is that he depends on his devotee to accomplish a task. And Prabhupada lists 3. And in the 3rd in particular, it certainly shows his unique and specific, glorious individual relationship with Krishna. Sometimes his temple is old and in disrepair, and he asks his devotees to fix it. I think that's a good vanguard for what we're doing here. So those who are fixing the old temple and putting it into repair, they can take stock in that. Sometimes his deity is lost in the jungle and he asks his devotee to rescue him. That also kind of applies here too. And sometimes he asks his devotee to preach his name and fame all over the world. One who has perceived this opulence of the Lord, that he, although independent in Atmaram, depends on his devotee to do some work and actually understand the actual meaning of the master and servant relationship. So, as the epilogue to Prabhupada Lilamrta, Prabhupada's having disciples did not end on November 14th, 1977. The standard etiquette of and practicality of disciple, grand disciple, great grand disciple that will go on. Yet Prabhupada is the founder Acharya, the preeminent Shiksha Guru for everyone in ISKCON for at least the next 10,000 years, is very, very, very special and extraordinary. And I guess myself and devotees like Krishna Kripa were like the first litmus test experiment, coming myself in 1978, and 1 year after Prabhupada's departure. Never met Srila Prabhupada personally, yet here we are, or here I am 43 years later, and my resolve and determination to serve Srila Prabhupada only increases day by day and hasn't wavered. That's Prabhupada's personal presence in my life. So we should take these things very much to heart and very, very seriously. So we celebrate, or we observe, kind of a, maybe not such a good word to say, we celebrate the Disappearance Day. I know that there's some devotees, Satsvarup Maharaj in particular, he doesn't even want to be reminded that it's Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. He won't take part in any observance. I know Chandrasekhar Maharaj, he wanted to, I think it was last year, put together a, who would be willing to speak, and I told him, don't even think of asking Satsvarup Maharaj, it's such a heavy day. But Prabhupada is present always in his service, in his remembrance, in his glorification, and we can see when Prabhupada would speak on, interestingly enough, there's a good number of Prabhupada speaking on the appearance and disappearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and a majority of those talks is just Prabhupada is preaching the standard philosophy. So it's interesting that today We're observing this for the Sunday feast, so this is a preaching opportunity. And of course, and in conclusion, this is Prabhupada's New York, where he started the Krishna consciousness movement. There's great potency here, because this is the place where the dream came true. And these are Srila Prabhupada's Sri Radha Govinda deities, and this temple, now with a little help from urban renewal and, real estate going up, the original opulence that Krishna personally gifted to Srila Prabhupada, culminating in the form of the 340 West 55th Street Temple. Prabhupada was very fond of his skyscraper temple in Manhattan. The beacon of Krishna consciousness to the whole world has now taken the shape here. So there's great plans to serve and please Srila Prabhupada by building this New York ISKCON Yatra more and more. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. More food, homage. Now we will call His Grace Krishna Prabhu.
Magyana Timurandasya Kanandana Shlakaya Chakshunamritamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Budale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinam Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Bhajarani Nirvase Srinivadi Pastyatya Adeshtani. So my offering is to make a ladus for Prabhupada's lunch. Given the opportunity to say a few words, I like to make sweets on the festival days because they taught me how to make sweets when I lived in San Diego. Krishna gave me so many sweets in the beginning, I thought I should reciprocate. My first service here at 55th Street was to transfer the Radha Govinda's Maha sweets, which was a very relishable service. So, basically, I just wanted to thank Srila Prabhupada for giving us so much knowledge about God and that we didn't encounter in the West. Basically, God is generally seen as like an all-pervading presence. Sometimes people have a sense that God's in the heart inspiring. There's an idea that we're created in the image of God, but what God actually looks like, what actually goes on in the spiritual world, the relationships God has, what you will do when you get there, if you get there, and really how one actually can be sure of elevating himself to the spiritual world. So many details about God and the process of attaining God are given that we just didn't know in the West, and it's a great opportunity. And not only that, he gave us a program where we can purify this whole material world and actually change it into a spiritual world by giving people the chance to contact Krishna via the holy name, by his literatures. So it's actually, it's amazing that we can just go out there and chant Hare Krishna and everyone's karma changes. You know, all the sinful activities they're destined to suffer for, they're no longer destined to suffer for. They have a seed of devotion planted in their heart, which means they'll get another chance to encounter devotional service and gradually progress. So, I'm so happy to be blessed with all these transcendental books that Srila Prabhupada has given with detailed knowledge about the Lord, so I can be excited about the prospect of having a relationship with Him, living with Him eternally in the spiritual world. We learn of the 64 transcendental qualities of Krishna, the nectar of devotion, and we learn there's 5 rasas, and we each have a rasa with the Supreme Lord that's unique to us and completely satisfying to us. And There's some little section I like to read on his disappearance from the concluding words of the Antya Lila. Sometimes I read the whole thing, but for the benefit of people, other people want to speak, I'll just read a couple of sentences. He's talking about how his guru isn't personally present, but he says, I think that His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is always seeing my activities and guiding me within the heart by his words. And then he quotes that Tene Brahma Hridaya Avadi Kavaye, how the Lord enlightened Brahma. And then he says, spiritual inspiration comes from within the heart, where the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in his Paramatma feature, is always sitting with all his devotees and associates. So we always hear how the Lord is in the heart, but we're here Prabhupada is reminding us that all his devotees and his associates are there too, and therefore Prabhupada is there in our heart and can guide us if we sincerely desire to be guided. So thank you for allowing me to say a few words in my lethargic, sleep-deprived condition. Hare Krishna.
Now we will invite Grace Shobhamani Mataji to come say a few words. Hare Krishna.
Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapadaya Bhutale Srimati Radhana Swami Ti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapadaya Bhutale Srimati Ghosh Govinda Swami Ti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishnapadaya Bhutale Srimati Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Ti Namine. Hare Krishna. I don't know what to say, but in 1974, as a young came from India, and there was no temple, only Hare Krishna temple in Henry Street. So my husband says, I know you like to go to temple, there is no temple, only one temple, and I'll take you there. And in 74, yes, it was like September, October, and we went to Henry Street temple. Prabhupada went there, I was there, and we had his darshan, and we had some friends. They said, this is all Western Guru. I remember that. Our says, this is Western Guru, Prabhupada, who came from India. And then we had a darshan, and then he was on Rath Yatra and Subhadra's cart. That time also we had darshan, and Prabhupada. Then 1977, he was very sick, and he left. But from 1976, we are serving by mercy of Srila Prabhupada to Radha Govinda. So many disturbances came in life, but we were steady. One time on Radhastami, 2017, I remember that clearly. 2017, it was Radhastami. Day before Radhastami, somehow I got upset. And on Radhastami, I had to wake the deities, do the Mangala Arati. I forgot to set the alarm. And about 3:35, I'm in my dream. Prabhupada, it's a program, and Prabhupada says, Mr. Trivedi, let's do more kirtan. I still remember this verse. And I woke up and, so I have so many realizations. But anyway, thank you so much. I'm still here, serving Radha Govinda with everybody's blessings and Prabhupada's mercy. Thank you.
Next, we'd like to invite Her Grace Damodar Priya to come up and sing.
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Krishna Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatya Deshatharine. Hare Krishna. In the year 1977, when Srila Prabhupada left this world, I was born, and I owe my life to Srila Prabhupada. I was born in Czech Republic. My spiritual master, His Grace Bhaktivedanta Baba Maharaj, he's from Germany, and I got initiated in Ukraine. And for 17 years, I live here with my husband that is originally from Slovakia. I live here in the United States. So just that is a testament to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and to the strength of the movement that he established, to the strength of the purity of the message that Srila Prabhupada brought us, to the strength of the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita that he so meticulously translated day by day, making it his life mission for us to be able to access the purity of the divinity of Radha and Govinda. Due to the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we are all here. And like I said, Srila Prabhupada is saving my life every day. And although I never had personal experience with Srila Prabhupada, by his mercy, he did appear in my dreams. And he even took me in a dream to India. It was very special. And he is, by his mercy, I have association of devotees. And I can actually do service for Srila Prabhupada and for Lord Chaitanya, because Srila Prabhupada is still present. He is present in his books. He's present in his words, in his preaching. And as long as we follow what Srila Prabhupada said, we will feel his presence. There's no doubt about it. And we're so fortunate to be here in New York. I remember Pancharatna Prabhu was saying this year was Srila Prabhupada Appearance Day, a memory from Srila Prabhupada when they asked him, so Srila Prabhupada, what is your most important project? And devotees thought, it's Mayapur, right? And Pancharatna Prabhu said, what Srila Prabhupada said, it's New York. And so we are all so very fortunate that we can be here and help in the mission of Srila Prabhupada to be engaged in the army of the Sema Bhakti Bhakta of Srila Prabhupada to spread this movement. Just bring a little bit of the offering, offer your heart. Just like, we may think how insignificant we are. Just like when they were building a bridge for Lord Ram to reach Lanka, even the little ants, they were bringing whatever they could carry to help Lord Ram. And no small task was overlooked. So please, everyone, take it seriously and try to serve Srila Prabhupada and his mission. And then there is no doubt about it that at the end of our life, Srila Prabhupada will appear and take us home back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Damodar Priya. His grace, Hari Vilas, will come and say a few words.
Let's explain that just like if one is trying to estimate the greatness of a mountain, it is actually not so easy to see how big a mountain is if you are very close to it. But when you start moving further and further away, and then at a certain point, then you can really see how great it is. Because all mountains, if you're close to them, it looks big. So similarly, to estimate the greatness of great personalities is not so easy. Because in the beginning, if one is close to them, specifically close in time, who knows who is great? You see, even someone like Jesus Christ, he was here, and even within 100 years after his birth, he was just an obscure Jewish person who had some few followers somewhere. And there was no indication of what would happen. And now, even 2,000 years later, more than 3 billion planets, 3 billion people, at least externally, but who can doubt that Jesus Christ had made a big impact? So similarly with Srila Prabhupada, we don't really know how great he is. Many people meet him, but you don't know. You don't know who is really great. And it is only actually as time will be going on that we will slowly start to realize what exactly Prabhupada was able to accomplish, because his accomplishments will extend thousands of years into the future. So this is an interesting thing about being great, some greatness. And in the modern world, I have a friend who called me. He's a very theatrical person, and he called me. We were speaking the other day, and he told me, he said, he has some appreciation for Vedic culture, and he's read the Mahabharata. And he told me, he said, Hari, in the modern world, life has no glory. He says, he's making his life in the modern, there is no glory. And that is a fact. In the modern world, we see that most people are trying to be comfortable, as the highest goal in life is comfort. But comfort, there is no glory in comfort. So if we look then at Srila Prabhupada, that is where he came to inspire us to live a life that is glorious. And the real greatness of an individual, the real greatness is not necessarily seen by their accomplishments in terms of buildings or power or money or all these other things, which is also there. But the real greatness of a great personality is seen in his ability to inspire people to sacrifice their lives, because that is something that is very difficult to do. Not by money, not by force, but voluntarily. And whenever I have the opportunity, sometimes here in the Brooklyn Temple, so we are here, and again, in the thick of it, we sometimes can seem a little challenging, temple life and everything that needs to be done to keep the wheels turning. But then also, what do we know? What will happen here? No? What greatness will perhaps come from this? We will only even know, maybe even in our life we won't know what will come from what we are contributing to. And whenever I have the opportunity sometimes to sit with individuals, some of the great devotees who are here, who have given 30, 40, 50 years, many years of their lives, they have somehow sacrificed for Srila Prabhupada. It's at that moment that one can really see how great Prabhupada is, see it reflected in the magnitude of these individual sacrifice. And on Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day today, my only prayer is that I can also somehow stay within the association with these individuals. So I myself also fear to live an inglorious life. And by being in the association of these great personalities who have become great by sacrificing their lives for Srila Prabhupada's sake, then hopefully we also can make our own contribution and to at least also participate in the greatness that is Srila Prabhupada in his life. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Now we'd like to invite His Grace Nadabar Gauranga Prabhu to come say a few words.
Mokum Karuti Vachalam Gaiti Giram Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurundir Taranam Paramanandamaram Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hariom Tat Sat. It's a few things I was thinking about. It said on the Tirobhav of great acharyas that it's actually like a very happy event, although I don't know if many devotees feel that, especially in regards with Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day. But they say the reason is that now he's being reunited with Krishna, and so it's a great happiness, but it's a very heavy moment for all of us left on the other side of the ocean of material existence. And it's said when the spiritual master leaves, like when the husband leaves, if the wife is out of separation, that it's less of a burning feeling to jump into the fire and commit sati than it is to experience the separation. So similarly, the sincere disciple, they should either immediately go back with the spiritual master, or if they stay, they should continue the actual purpose of the spiritual master. And something I was just hearing in the descriptions of autumn reminded me of Srila Prabhupada. It was saying, during the rainy season, in the evening, there are many glowworms visible about the tops of trees, hither and thither, and they glitter just like lights. But the luminaries of the sky, the stars and moon, are not visible. Similarly, in the age of Kali, persons who are atheists or miscreants become very prominently visible, whereas persons who are actually following the Vedic principles for spiritual emancipation are practically obscured. And so Prabhupada, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyacha Deshatarine. He's like that great luminary in the sky, dispelling the false light of all these little glowworms. And he gives us practical advice in this paragraph. As clouds sometimes clear even in the rainy season, and sometimes the moon, stars, and sun become visible, so even in this Kali Yuga, there are sometimes advantages. For example, sometime Lord Chaitanya's Vedic movement of distributing the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is heard. With emphasis on the Vedic movement, this is the eternal Vedic culture being manifested, and Prabhupada is getting us a hint that it's started by spreading the chanting of the Maha Mantra. And as Prabhupada said, that this is the Pancharatna Prabhu, that here in New York City is the most important place of all his projects, even more so than Bombay, which he struggled so hard, and Mayapur and Vrindavan, the holy dhams, that this was the place where he really wanted to work. And there's been so much misfortune throughout the history here in New York, but I think now things are looking like the future is very bright. So on this day, we just pray to Srila Prabhupada that we're all inspired with that dynamic spiritual preaching force that he completely had to be able to capture the hearts of so many people, because we're definitely going to need a lot to break through the heavy modes in this city and on this planet and in general. And like that, we can properly honor the disappearance of the spiritual master. Hare Krishna.
Next, we'd like to invite Prabhu Vishnu into the appearance.
So, Hare Krishna. I'm not very good at this, so please bear with me while I go through this. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Where do I even begin? As I sit here on this chair as the most insignificant servant of your divine grace, all I can think of is how much you have sacrificed in your life for me to be able to sit on this chair. You cried out your heart every day in the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan and praying to the Lord. And the culmination of all those prayers was the spotless purport of your books, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. You say that the books are the basis of this movement, so it is only imperative that we take it on ourselves to read your books more religiously. We chant our 16 rounds because we have taken a vow to do so, but we do not read because we haven't taken that vow. You said numerous times in your purpose that with the blessings of the spiritual master, a layman can climb a mountain. Thus, I humbly request you to empower all of us all over the world to be able to read your purports, your books, and thoroughly understand them so we can preach Krishna consciousness to the fallen conditioned souls of this world. Because without Krishna consciousness, there is no happiness in this world. I could not be more grateful to be offered this opportunity to be a part of this beacon of a project for the Hare Krishna movement in ISKCON, New York. And I just hope that I can serve you and your representatives here with everything that I have. Hare Krishna.
नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद् भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनित्य नामने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य स्थानिने. Hare Krishna. So, I see the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada to be a day where we can actually meditate on Srila Prabhupada. It's a very nice opportunity for all of us to come together like this and meditate on different qualities of Srila Prabhupada. I don't feel qualified to speak about or in this such a meeting where Prabhupada disciples and people who have actually had such intimate dealings or meetings with Srila Prabhupada or realizations about Srila Prabhupada. But in my life I've seen Srila Prabhupada is known for making miracles wherever he goes. So there is, I heard this from His Holiness Badrinath Goswami Maharaj. He was saying that in Calcutta, forgive me if the details are maybe a little not so accurate, but in Calcutta, one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada went to Prabhupada and told him, Prabhupada, that there's this yogi who can create an apple from out of nowhere. He has this mystic siddhi. So Prabhupada said, he closed his eyes, went into meditation, and he came back and he said, I also traveled to the western side alone in a cargo ship, and when I reached there was no one for me. And then for a year I struggled, and finally some preaching started taking place. Then one by one, some disciples started connecting with me. And like this, from New York, to different cities, the Krishna consciousness was spread. And now it is all over the world. Now we have so many temples, Srila Prabhupada is saying. Now we have so many temples. And in each of these temples, there are deities in every temple. And for the deities, we purchase so many apples, and not just one apple that the yogi could make. Now, because of this worldwide movement, in each and every of my temple, there are so many apples, and not just apple fruit. We also have apple pastries, apple sweets, and so many things are made from apple. So, who is a better yogi? Prabhupada asked. So, in this way, we see Prabhupada, wherever he goes, he makes miracles. In South India, in the Madhva, there was a conference of Madhva sannyasis, and I believe some of the ISKCON sannyasis were also invited. There, I think it was on the 50th anniversary or much before that, 50th anniversary of ISKCON or much before that, there was a meeting where one of the foremost of Madhva sannyasis, he rose up in the meeting and he spoke that amongst all of us, this Srila Prabhupada, he is the foremost of us all. Usually, because Madhva Sampradaya is coming from, the sannyasis, they're all very strict and everything, so for them to glorify someone else is a big thing, and especially to glorify someone of ISKCON is even a bigger thing. So this foremost of sannyasi, when he rose up, he said, this Srila Prabhupada is the foremost of all sannyasis. Why? Because he did something which none of us here, present here, can even dream of. What is that? To cross this ocean, go to the other side, which is not, it's not considered proper for a sannyasi according to Vedic understanding, to cross the ocean. But Srila Prabhupada did that, and he has gone to the Westerners and he has made the Westerners devotees. And none of us, even if we all put together, can do what Srila Prabhupada has done. This Madhva Sannyasi said. So in this way we see Srila Prabhupada, wherever he goes, he creates miracles. And he has created miracle not just, he has created a miracle for each and every one of us in our lives. I've seen in India, generally we are brought up, since childhood we are made to hear some devotional songs. And those devotional songs are also pretty clear, how bhakti is the topmost and everything. But I've seen in my life, till the time I contact with Srila Prabhupada's disciples, Srila Prabhupada's books, and all the ISKCON movement, not a word of those songs made any sense. Right? After coming to ISKCON, then we have seen whatever other people, other saints were saying, it all makes so much sense. And that everything made sense because we have come in touch with Srila Prabhupada. And why was Srila Prabhupada so successful in making miracles wherever he went? Because he always kept Krishna and the holy name in the forefront. We see anyone who creates a mission, anyone who creates an organization, they usually name the organization after themselves. Srila Prabhupada named the movement as ISKCON, which is International Society for Krishna Consciousness. There is no A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami or Bhaktivedanta's movement, right? So there is a small excerpt from Ocean of Mercy by His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami. Most of you have heard this thing, heard this incident, but it's very nice to go over it. This is when Srila Prabhupada was in his, toward the end of his pastimes. So one day, Akinchan Krishnadas Babaji along with Bon Maharaj, they came and they sat around Srila Prabhupada. So I'll just read from from the excerpt from this book. One evening, Bon Maharaj came along with Krishnadas Babaji. Then in his cheerful manner, Babaji Maharaj said to Bon Maharaj, "You are a great preacher. He is also a great preacher." So he's pointing at now Prabhupada. He is Prabhupada. "You are a great scholar. He is also a great scholar. You have very good command over the English language. He also has a very wonderful command over the English language. You went to the West. He also went to the West. Then how come he has been so successful, but you were not?" Srila Bon Maharaj smiled without saying anything. Srila Prabhupada looked embarrassed and remained silent. Babaji Maharaj broke that uneasy silence because of his unflinching faith in the holy name. During his sannyas initiation in Mathura, I was there. Keshav Maharaj was chanting various Vedic mantras. I started to sing the Maha Mantra. Some devotees felt that my loud chanting may have been disturbing the ceremony and asked me to stop. I was about to stop, but Swami Maharaj, with a gesture of his hands, urged me to continue, and I did. I also heard that when he went to America, he used to sit alone under a tree in a park and just sing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, playing kartals. See how much faith and conviction one needs to do that. And now we can see the extent of his success. People say that I have a taste for chanting the holy name. However, I just chant myself, but he made the whole world chant. That is the difference between him and us. So now Bhakti Charu Maharaj is writing, my heart melting with gratitude, I told him, Srila Prabhupada, I wish I had been there with you when you were alone in New York. He was silent for a minute. Then he said, I was never alone. Krishna was always with me. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Next we'll call
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Vishesha Shunyari Vishate Dejatarini. Dear Srila Prabhupada, actually I'm unqualified to speak, but since Gopal Champu Prabhu asked me, I'm going to try to speak something to glorify Prabhupada. I was meditating today how a Vaishnava is like a touchstone. And wherever he meets and wherever he goes, he can transform this person. Like in the same way, like a touchstone can transform iron into gold. A Vaishnava, he can transform whomever he meets also into Vaishnavas. And we can clearly see that in Srila Prabhupada's life. I was thinking if someone who never heard about ISKCON or never heard about Prabhupada, and if you would tell them about Prabhupada's story, no one would ever believe it. Like if you tell them about, what to speak of Prabhupada going to the West, if you just tell them how Prabhupada struggled in India, how after he was serving his spiritual master, but then while he was a family member, then after he renounced his family, after he took Vanapras, with how much dedication, just he himself, he was pushing on this movement, how he was just by himself, living in Radha Damodar, traveling alone all the way to Delhi, collecting money, writing books, printing books, how he would skip his meals just to distribute them despite obstacles. Just that no one would believe. You know, one person, why would he do so much without getting anything from it? But then if you tell them, after all the struggle, how Prabhupada came to the West and then how he opened up hundreds of temples and created an international society, no one would believe that, you know, no one. Like, because it's impossible. Materially, it's impossible. Like, I heard someone, one religious writer, he was comparing Prabhupada with other great personalities who were in the past. And obviously there's not many to compare with, but he was this religious scholar. He was not a Hare Krishna, but still he could recognize Prabhupada's position. He was saying even Jesus Christ, when he appeared, he was a young man and he was preaching to people of his own kind. You know, but Prabhupada, when he came to the West, he was an old man. He was 70 years old when he boarded the ship, you know, like they hardly leave their house. But he boarded the ship, he went to another country, and then he converted, or he educated people of a completely different kind to him, you know, like very young people who are hippies, completely out of a completely different culture. I always try to imagine the scene of Prabhupada, like a Bengali gentleman in the middle of Haight-Ashbury. It's very inconceivable. And another thing that I noticed, that is that Prabhupada has this inconceivable potency. Obviously Krishna has that, but we can see it in Prabhupada's life. And it's also Prabhupada's disciples who take his mission to his heart. They also have this potency. Many years ago, like 3 years ago, not so long, I was in Sri Mayapur Dham, and we were also celebrating this day. And one of the sannyasis, he mentioned that the proof of Prabhupada's potency, because we were in Mayapur, he said, the proof of Prabhupada's potency lies here in Sri Mayapur Dham. Many years ago, it was just fields, just grass, and like there was nothing. And now, when I was there, I was traveling with another brahmachari, and the moment we entered Mayapur, we just looked at each other and we thought, oh yes, we joined the right movement. So we can see that there was Prabhupada's potency. We can see it there, we can see it here in New York. We can see it. I traveled a little in the last year and I saw many places, and I can see all this all because of Prabhupada's potency. In some places Prabhupada was personally there and he made it potent. In other places Prabhupada was not even there physically, but because his disciples were there, because his books came there, so then also this potency transferred. So all of us, we have this great fortune that if we like, we can also get that potency by following Prabhupada's instructions. And I often like to quote this, that there's a saying that with great power there comes great responsibility. So actually all of us, we have great responsibility also, because we have the power, to connect to Prabhupada, and because we can do it, therefore we have a responsibility, to do it actually also. And just another thing that I was thinking about today is that we say it's Srila Prabhupada's Disappearance Day because today Prabhupada disappeared from our physical vision. But for me, I'm sure for many devotees also, it does not feel like Prabhupada's disappearance, because, I don't know how it was when Prabhupada appeared personally, but I know that we can always, feel Prabhupada's presence. Like when we read Prabhupada's books, I remember the first time I read my Bhagavad Gita, I was a very impersonalist, and I was really set in my ways, and devotees that tried to preach to me and never clicked. But when I was reading Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, then I was really, so we can experience Prabhupada through the books. He's still there in his books. And also, I know a bit more mystical. Also, Prabhupada, sometimes he preaches to people, like in real, like in dreams. I know many devotees that, one devotee, he told me that before he met the Hare Krishnas, he had a dream. And Prabhupada came to his dream and he told him to read Bhagavad Gita. And the next week, he actually met the book distributor. So I know that one. Then there's another very famous story of an army general in Russia. He had two soldiers who were into yoga. And that general, he was thinking that, I'm sort of also interested into yoga. So he asked the students, I hear you do some yoga, like what do you do? And then these two soldiers, they said that we have a book, the yoga text, Bhagavad Gita. And you can read it if you like, but you have to give a donation, And the general, he appreciated the boldness of his soldiers. So he gave them actually a donation. He took a book and he read it, but he only read the translations. And then soon Prabhupada, he appeared in his dream, and he was speaking perfect Russian. And he told him, you also have to read the purports. So Prabhupada is still there. He's still preaching, sometimes more than what we can see. And there's one more pastime, actually it's very confidential. One of my very good friends, he's a very good preacher, very sincere devotee. He told me this story, and I like to share it. He told me not to share it with anyone, but he's not here today. So, so he was doing Sankirtan in South America, and I was in Mexico too, and I could see the movement. It must have been much bigger than what it is now. Let's put it that way. So he was traveling through South America, and there are many big places which are slowly getting abandoned because not so many devotees are preaching. Maybe there are different difficulties they were facing that they're struggling to cope with. So my friend, he had a Sankirtan party, and they were going from city to city distributing books. Sometimes they would just stay out and they would just stay wherever they can sleep. Sometimes it was difficult to find a place. They were living very austere, and they were just really focused on distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. And once they came to one temple, and they must have been traveling already for many weeks, and they came to this temple which was very empty. There was only one pujari, or maybe two devotees at best. And he told me the story how they were doing this during Guru Puja. And as they were doing Guru Puja, and they started the kirtan and they started singing, suddenly they could see Prabhupada's murti, and it looked very different. Actually, Prabhupada's murti was crying, and they couldn't believe it. They were thinking maybe some of the water from the shared Mahawater, maybe that dropped on the deity, but no, it was not like that. Clearly that Prabhupada murti was crying, and he told me he didn't reveal it to anyone yet. He only told it to me, and he told it to His Grace Burijan Prabhu, because it's very confidential. But I thought I'd like to share it because just hearing this, we can actually, strengthen our faith, and we can understand that Prabhupada is really sitting on the Vyasa-san. He's really there in his books, and he's really happy to see us doing Sankirtan and spreading this movement. That is his heart. So, I like to keep it there, and I like to pray that I can, gain some intelligence and strength how to be part of this amazing movement. Hare Krishna.
Next we'll call Devarshi.
Hare Krishna. Oh. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Anta Swami Tinamne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pradine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. So I'll try to make this quick. Don't really have much to say about Srila Prabhupada, but yesterday me and Chaitanya Prabhu, we were watching a few of Srila following Prabhupada videos, and I was contemplating that, you know, everywhere where Srila Prabhupada would go, he would always be glorified. And, you know, like there's one clip where he was sitting on the Vyasa-san there doing Guru Puja, and everyone's around him chanting his name and dancing. And I really thought that, you know, this was amazing that, you know, he would never be bewildered to think that, you know, I'm like, you know, they're glorifying me. And he always thought that this was by the mercy of Krishna and his Guru Maharaj. And I really admired that because, you know, it's like, at least in my life, you know, it's like, you may get a little mercy or something like that, and it's so easy to become proud and puffed up. But we never saw that within Srila Prabhupada. And, you know, we can see that he was able to do so much because he had this conviction that this was by Krishna's mercy and his Maharaj's mercy. So I really admire that. And, I'd just like to touch on that quality of humility by Srila Prabhupada. And one thing for sure, I just want to say thank you, Srila Prabhupada, and pray for your mercy that I can be absorbed in reading your literatures, as I'm pretty weak when it comes to reading your books. But I know for sure when I do read them, they help me a lot in my Krishna consciousness. So, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Next we'll call Dr. Dylan. Please come up and say a few words.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. So there's so many nice offerings already made, so I don't have too much to say, but when I first came to ISKCON and started learning more about Srila Prabhupada, I was actually lamenting a lot that I couldn't, like, oh, why couldn't I have been around to actually see Srila Prabhupada in person? And then you learn more that you can actually connect with Srila Prabhupada through his books, and this is one thing that he would always say. And I think a lot of so-called spiritualists and Western yogis we meet in book distribution, they would say, oh, they already have their guru or their Babaji, but if their Babaji were to leave this world, they probably wouldn't know what to do or how to connect with him after that. So I'm just really thankful for Srila Prabhupada that I'm able to connect with him through books and through his lectures. You know, he's probably one of the most well-documented figures in a long time. There's so many lectures, thousands of videos online you can look at. And because of his causeless mercy, I'm able to associate with nice Vaishnavas every day. And it's really incredible that, you know, Joe Schmo off the street can come and associate with nice Vaishnavas every day. You could bring him to the temple and give him nice prasadam. Yeah, another point that I wanted to talk about is how incredible Srila Prabhupada's story is. Yeah, I heard even from a mundane point of view, I heard that look at Srila Prabhupada's story and see how he started an international movement in such a little time in hundreds of temples around the world. So even from a mundane point of view, it's really incredible to speak of the spiritual point of view. So he came here with nothing and started this international movement, and it's really inspiring. It's obvious that he was an acharya, and I'm just asking for the blessing of all you Vaishnavas and Srila Prabhupada that I can continue to serve. Hare Krishna.
Lilamrta, say a few words.
What I love about Prabhupada is that all around the world he has created family for me. And everywhere I go, there's devotees. And they're like family to me.
Would anybody else that hasn't spoken like to say something?
Namo Vishnupraya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauramani Pracharni Nivishesha Shunyamadi Bhaskara. So, in the summer of 2015, I was traveling in Europe, hitchhiking, and I was searching for the truth, basically. And by chance, I found a headline online that said, "Rural Spiritual Community, looking for volunteers." So I thought to myself, nice, bunch of hippies, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna enjoy with the hippies and have a great time. And then, once I made my way there, I found out, actually I didn't even know what the Hare Krishna movement was, but I found out that there was a bunch of guys wearing dresses, and yeah, it was a little different than a hippie community that I imagined it would be. But anyways, I got met by the most wonderful person. I don't remember his name. This was in Germany, in Gologadam. I don't know if any of you have been there before. It's a wonderful Hare Krishna community. And he invited me, I came on a Sunday, so he invited me into the temple room, and he told me that if you're hungry, you can come and you can join to eat some food. And I said, yes, sure. How wonderful. And when I came in, I saw that there were like 30 different items. And I was so hungry because I was hitchhiking, I didn't really have much money. And so I got served a huge plate of prasadam, like, you know, these big silver trays. And I had a mountain on top. And after eating 2 of those, I went they showed me into my room, my new room that I was going to stay and do volunteer work. And I remember just sitting down alone, and I felt so much happiness and ecstasy that I started crying, and I started laughing like a madman. And yeah, it really left a samskara for me. And after that, the day after, I went to the morning program, and I remember seeing Radha Krishna for the first time, and Govinda's opening and I remember also at that point my heart completely melted, you know. It was such an amazing experience. And after that we had a class, Srimad Bhagavatam class, and this devotee, Mataji, she was singing Jaya Radha Madhava, and I remember again my heart completely melted from it. And yeah, so my realization is that there are so many different temples. I've been to a lot of different temples in Europe, and everywhere there are dedicated devotees of Krishna and followers of Srila Prabhupada. So I just wanted to thank Srila Prabhupada for spreading the Krishna consciousness movement around the world. Actually still there and every. And yeah, I just want to thank you, Srila Prabhupada, for turning another hippie into a happy. Hare Krishna.
Anybody Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Vaisheshika Dasa Adhikari Namne Nama Prahasaya Srila Prabhupada Nusaline Aniti Tasmai Shastra Bhajan. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyapashatarine. This is a very beautiful verse at the beginning of Srila Raghunath Das Goswami Mukta Charita, which he glorifies his spiritual master. And it's Nama Shreshtam Manabisachi Putram Matrasa Rupam Rupam Rupurim Maturim Gostavatim Radha Kundam Girivaram Maho Radhika Vadamsam Bhakto Yasya Patidaki Paryashigurum Tam Natosmi. It says, I bow down to the beautiful lotus feet of my spiritual master, by whose causeless mercy I have received the supreme holy name, the divine mantra, the service of the son of Sachimata, the association of Sarup Damodar, Rupa Goswami and his older brother Sanatana Goswami, the supreme abode of Mathura, the blissful abode of Vrindavan, the divine Radha Kunda and Govardhan Hill, and the desire within my heart for the loving service of Sri Radhika and Madhava in Vrindavan. So Srila Prabhupada, you are the greatest of all mystic yogis. As we heard some of the, you transformed those people who were unwilling or had no knowledge of Krishna into devotees of Krishna. And you did the same in my life. Up until I was 20 years old, I hadn't even heard the word Krishna, ever. Or if I did, it might have been unconsciously or unknowingly. But as soon as I got in touch with your Bhagavad Gita, my life completely changed. And we see from your life, as was documented by your disciple, His Grace, His Holiness, Satsrup Das Goswami, and in Lilamrta, we saw you were fully dedicated to preaching the absolute truth, fully dedicated to everyone you came in contact with, to teach them about Krishna, to convince them about Krishna, to turn them into devotees of Krishna. And you attributed this many times to this verse, commentary in verse, Vyavasayapnika buddhiya ekeha kurunandana bahushaka yananta buddhayo vyavasayana. How one's intelligence must be one-pointed and fixed. And you were fixed, Srila Prabhupada, on the order of your spiritual master. And you made the order of your spiritual master your life and soul. And no matter what happened, no matter what obstacles you had to face and overcome, you boldly to give us this Krishna conscious movement to everyone that you came in contact with. So on this day of your disappearance, you're very much present here with us as we've heard all these offerings. All of us, most of us are aspiring devotees that I have never even met you personally, but we're coming in contact with you every day, still through your books, through your disciples, which we still have a fortune to be able to serve and be around. And I pray that I can continue to be a soldier in your army, to your lotus feet, and for you, and for you to bring them back to Krishna and guide them back to the spiritual world. So thank you for all you've given me, and I just pray that we can continue to expand the Sankirtan movement to as many people as possible all over the world. Thank you. Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. commence the morning offerings to His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami Srila Prabhupada. And now the next part of the program at 12 o'clock, we will again meet here in the temple room to offer Guru Puja and Puspanjali.